And welcome back to Wall Tactics. We're here to talk about the rise of the green tide, or in this case, the Orks running rampant at the London GT. So welcome back, boys, because it's time to say the boys are back in town. At least for this weekend, right? At least for this weekend. So the Orks made a showing. So shout out to all the gets, and I'll be showing you some of those gets today. I like to mix it up like always. So we'll be going over a green tide list, a War Horde list, and a Bully Boys list, just because I like to know all the things. So with that being said, guys, let's talk about the wall tactics. But before we do that, got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Baron of Dice. So Baron of Dice helping us with our paint competition, 5% discount in the description code. Please feel free to check them out and or our Amazon affiliate because it helps us out. Shout out to Baron of Dice and our paint competition winner, because that's what we all like to see, boys, when we getting stuck in, right? The hobby's also a factor around her. So, like always, let's look at Meta Monday. So Meta Monday surprisingly didn't give his little cliff note. You know, you guys, how they always give a little cliff note when you look at his things about orcs. He didn't say anything, and right? He's been saying about orcs are pretty bad and we need help and all these things. A lot of people were sitting back and saying, okay, let's see what's going on here. What I found was interesting is, of course, as we look over today's events, lists and what players did. The London GT is enormous, 800 players. We'll go over it a bit more today. But surprisingly, how many orc players did so well? Is it that terrain format? Is it the environment? Why did it particularly shine there? So if you're someone from that part of the world, that neck of the woods, or familiar with the international, leave a comment, maybe what your thoughts on to why orcs suddenly shined on the UKTC terrain, because at least from the rumors that we hear a lot of the time, the UKTC terrain can be kind of open. And today we're actually going to have, thank you to Graham Russell for the actual tournament pack, we're going to be able to look at all the actual deployments and missions. So with these numbers that we're looking at, just know that the London GT itself played a big impact, but there were other orc players that were successful. So shout out to them. You can see orcs are sitting at a 49% win rate, which is generally actually quite healthy. If we were sitting at this win rate all the time, then people wouldn't look at us thinking that we need assistance. So War Horde is sitting at 55%. Of course, we all agree that War Horde is just innately the strongest one. Not meaning that it's limited to, just widely accepted that it's just innately strong. Kind of like Gladius Stats Force for Marines, how it's like other detachments are good, but Gladius is so well-rounded, it's like, why? But we do have at least one orc player who made a showing, which we are going to talk about today, that was in green tide with the 53% win rate as the players as a whole, even though there's only 4 of them. Bully Boys making another appearance with the player going 4-1 with them as well, with the quite traditional Bully Boys list. And then we have a Dread Mobs. Dread Mobs stats, like I always say, are going to throw you on your head, right? Because there's 3 players that had showings, as you can see right here. Out of 13 players, yet our win rate's 40%. As a whole, 41% for like the fast 5 weeks. So GW is always going to look at them and be like, what's happening? And then you take a look at what's going on, and there's a guy running double stompers with the Gorkanaut. Like, hey, so it's pretty hilarious with that. So, of course, guys, like we know, these are just general stats to give us a general consensus and understanding. It doesn't mean these are the, limited to these things, never meant to discourage people from doing what they want to do. It's just to give people an understanding that we can all agree on where maybe the boys might be. So, today we're going to talk about the London GT. And as if you didn't know, which I'm sure you already did, Orks got second place at this event. Let's give it a little overview real quick, because a lot of the lads around here are from the States and we aren't familiar with this. Of course, if you're new as well, look at that, guys. Up to 1,052 players available. They ended up with like 886 or 4 or something like that, right? So that's fantastic. Pretty awesome. And we're going to be looking at all the players. There's actually 36 orc players. As you can see, this thing's loading up kind of slow right now on its own, being weird. But that's okay, because today we're going to talk about the gets that paid the bills. Here's a paint competition winner, of course. Before we look at all those guys, I just wanted to, those particular guys I'm going to cover today, just want to give a shout out to the successful war bosses. I want to make a slide for all the players that ended up going on this list. Everyone that you see here went 4-1, not including the 3 guys we're going to cover. So we have 5 guys on here that went on War Horde that went 4-1, not including Brian Sepp, who is the guy who got second place at the London GT that went 8-1. So that's already 5 War Horde players that were 4-1. Well, actually, sorry, Joshua Colward was 3-1-1, but hey, we know you can go 4-1-1. We have 1 Bully Boys player who went 4-1. That is Ivan Mesjera, who also was at the London GT, and then 2 other Dread Mob players that were at the London GT, between Daniel Greaves, Robert Atkins, that were at getting Dread Mob 4-1. And then, of course, right here, shout out to Matthew, like always, at the Rook 40K Open GT as well. He was running War Horde and got 4-1. So it's Tom Godfrey, Ben Crotswaite, hope I messed you up, Caleb Mahi, Joshua Callward, and Matthew, right? So those are all the players going up there, going 4-1. That way you can see, guys, the numbers were reflecting. There were so many orcs that I could have covered. Don't be surprised if we come back in here and take a couple looks at some of these gets. So shout out to them if they're in the chat. I know Ivan is in our Discord. I know a couple people were covering today in our Discord. I know Matthew's in our Discord. So shout out to you, Gits, for representing the Great WAAAGH. But today, let's start off with the notorious Brian Sepp, right? So Brian decided that he was going to travel to London and put a pain train on everybody with the basic War Horde list. So let's take a look at this War Horde list, because even though I said basic, what I meant is, as in orcs generally understand War Horde, but what no one's seen coming and no one understand was the key tactical points of this list. Highly cunning. So we have Gazgul Thraka, Beast Boss on foot, 2 Big Mechs. Yes, guys, 2 Big Mechs. The basic legendary Big Mech that showed up in that Stompa box that no one understood, that everyone for the most part found to be beautiful as a model, but hated as a rules wise, is the Big Mech. He made it work. We'll talk about that in a second. We have 3 war bosses for the triple war boss, because of course that's always fantastic on any War Horde list. 1 war boss does have the cunning but brutal, and one of the Big Mechs had follow me lads. Then he has simply 1 unit of Beast Snagger Boys, followed by 2 20-man unit of basic boys. Another fun tech piece on this list. He has 2 5-man units of Burner Boys. Both of the Spanners have custom Mega Blasters. 2 10-man units of Gretchen. A simple 2-man unit of Knobs, Mega Knobs, to sit with gas. A 5-man unit of Knobs with Power Claws. 2 Battlewagons, both of them with hard cases. And then 2 trucks as the dedicated transport. Now, if you don't know, you can actually catch the final game of this finals on War Games Live. So shout out to War Games Live. I do recommend you guys go and actually watch that. That way you can have an actual unfolding and understanding of how he ran this list. Because it does take a lot of nuance in you to understand as an orc player why it's not so simple as you can just take someone's list and copy and paste it for any of the lists that we ever cover on any of these streams. As much as the person had success with them doesn't mean you will just because you picked that up, especially when you're playing orcs. For other factions, don't want to call them out to make anybody feel bad, but let's just say you take 3 of one kind of data sheet that has maybe a 4 field note pain or damage reduction, and you spam it all out there, and then you get a bunch of re-rolling damage, and you spam those 3 data sheets out there. Yes, for the most part, you can just blow people away with those kind of archetypes. In this kind of archetype where he's running 2 Big Mechs and 20-man units of boys and then double battle wagons here, double burner boys, this isn't about, I'm just going to table you and sit back. This is very much about, I have redundancy in tool assets so that I can actually set my game plan forward. So with the Big Mechs, like I always say and persistently give advice towards, is if you want to run your Big Mech because you picked up that Stompa box, counterintuitively, you don't really see him as much in Dread Mob. I understand why you would put him in Dread Mob because he's a mech, but in reality, he's so good in War Horde because he can really take advantage of the movement shenanigans that are in War Horde, because his ability isn't that I can charge through a data sheet. His ability is that I can simply move through a data sheet, right? Which limits him if you don't have great movement. If you're sitting at a basic orc infantry 6-inch movement, it's not that interesting. But then you give him follow me, lads. Then you leave the actual 20-man unit of boys disembarked on the table. If you look at the War Games Live game, yes, he has a battle wagon, but he does not have the 20-man units of boys simply all the time inside of there. There's this unit of boys that's sitting right in the middle of the table next to Gazgul that's always ready to go for a here we go, right? The reason why they have to be on the table is because here we go at the start of the movement phase. Therefore, if your Big Mech units, both of them are embarked in both of the battle wagons, then you can't declare an here we go and really throw them up the field when it's time to go, right? So you need to understand that with timing, and by watching him play that, maybe help you understand to use a little bit mech more in a way. Now, there's other videos that we cover about how to use a 20-man unit of boys. So you can stretch them out and tag things, charge, pile in towards different units, take advantage of getting on objectives, maximizing OC, things like that. These are all the nuances behind this list. But the fun tech piece is definitely the Big Mac. The different tech piece was the Burner Boys. I would say I'm happy to see Burner Boys, I finally am a bit limited just because they have to be on an objective to get their full ability from their data sheet for rerolls and such. But for 60 points is totally fine. He put them in reserves, I seen in one game, so you can bring them on the battlefield edge. Sometimes they're for scoring, sometimes they're just to overwatch a T3 unit. Like I've said before, T3 units are kind of annoying for Orks sometimes when they're in 10-man units. Therefore, he opted for burner boys. You know, flash goods could do it better, but they are 20 points better, more, right? So that does matter when you're starting to make cuts, and his big units of boys are highly expensive. He's paying for the war boss, he's paying for the mechs, and he's paying for the boys. The mech himself is not a cheap unit. Then you're sticking enhancements on him. So just keep that in mind. It's quite elite of an Ork list, even if we're going War Horde, because you still got Gazgul, you still got the Beast Snaggle boys with the Beast boss. So this is a lot of timing on this list and optimizing your movement. So as much as you look at this and you're like, hey, I love it. I'm really happy for anybody who gets inspired by this list and decides they want to use your big mech. Just try to understand that going forward. Yes, I can see why you want to put them in Dreadmount. Go ahead and have fun, but just know that when an optimized list and player was deciding to use the big mech, he was really taking advantage of the movement capabilities of the detachment that the big mech was in and stacking it with the boys in here with that, right? So love to see it. And then he does have the trucks there. You know, you can run SWAT teams in there where he can put a knob unit and 5 burner boys, or he could put the Beast Snaggle boys inside of there as a truck as well. Or even if you decide a Gretchen unit, some people just know if you're playing this list, there's different ways you can run it out. Of course, do not forget to take advantage of strategic reserves. Of course, Brian didn't. So, like always, let's talk about his path to victory. There's quite a lot of games here, so I'm not going to go too deep into them all, especially because hopefully Brian does some rounds and gets talking into people about how his event went. If not, find your way over to us, Brian, and I'm sure everybody want to hear an interview about this. So if you know Brian, give him a shout out so we can talk about it. But either way, I'm going to have fun. And yes, Blake Crittrell, I see you, buddy. Of course, the drill for 3 damage. Thanks for bringing that up too, especially in War Horde, right? You get critical 5s, and then the drill can actually demolish people for strength 12 minus 3 damage. Love that. And yes, this is live, you guys. And someone asked before I go into that, where's my boy? I seen you in here. Jay, when is the Hive stream? That's the Hive stream. What the heck? The hobby stream, that's this Friday, just so you know. So that's only in 2 days. All right, guys. So let's take a look at my boy's path to victory, because he was out here. He was out here, guys. And I like the list too, Aaron, for sure. The Big Mac, like I've said, I've always thought about just using one and then stacking follow me, lads. But redundancy is always a big factor, guys. So keep in mind, he definitely had redundancy. So right off the bat, he went into Chaos Space Marines with Pact Bound Zealots. So we have 2 Chaos Lords, a Cypher, a Dark Commune, 1 Cultist unit, Legionnaires, 2 Rhinos, and a Cursive Culted unit, a Chaos Predator, a Vindicator, 2 Vindicators, 2 Chosen units, a Trader Guardsman unit, and a Warp Talent. Now, real quick, because I'm sure people, are we going to remember this if you haven't checked it on War Games Live? Brian had to go into CSM in his last game going into the event. So this is nice that he got at least some reps into them before going forward, even if it was the same list or caliber of player. It has some of the same tools, as you would say, like a Cypher, right? For that Lord of the Seat that you're going to have to get stuck in and play the middle of the table and have to pay for those CP stratagems. Thank you, Blake, for bringing that up too. Yes, the Mac does go through the crates, but what I wanted to bring up here is thank you to, again, Mr. Russell Graham, what we're going to cover today, is showing. He actually sent me the tournament pack, so we can actually see. Everybody's following? Yes, we're following. So I actually have access to the tournament pack. Yes, I like that when I can actually see the tournament pack. That way we can actually get a visualization of what was going on here, even if we can't see the games. So for round 1, we had Terraform, secondary Swift Action. As you can see, it was a 5 objective mission with that laddering kind of deployment where it's up and down. Sometimes hard to get everything fit on the deployment zones in this case where you want it to be. All in all, I do like this sort of deployment for an Ork army, especially because you can actually string things and hide them in a certain way. Orks kind of want to take over the battlefield, especially with these 20-man units. So it allows your battle wagons to kind of go up in stage where you want them to be. And like I said, guys, I have never played on the UKTC terrain. I'll just be honest and say that. So I like to actually be able to see this and go, okay, I've heard a lot of lines of sights that are pretty horrible in this. It's not as bad yet as I can see, but there are certain things that you can shoot all the way down the lane pretty easily, right? From the deployment zone a little bit all the way down to the other person's deployment zone. So there are some things that I did notice, but all in all, very squared off. Definitely places you could stage up. There's that L shape right there in the left side of the screen above that objective marker. That's so good for a unit of 20 boys or a battle wagon to stage up in the middle of the field. Just think about how from there you can carry on and just push towards the middle from there. So I like to see that, especially when you're going against this Court of Space Marine list, which Chaos Space Marine list, which, you know, it does have one Accursive Culted Brick, but it doesn't have all the redundancy and killing potential as other, you know, more optimized CSM lists. Vindicators can surprisingly really mess up a 20-man unit of boys. So you do got to be, you know, cagey with that, because if you tag them, they can actually blow away like 7 boys a turn with that. Because they're blast weapon and they have a 2-up armor save, so they'll stay stuck in with you and not really worry about it. Luckily, he had gas, he had other things to kind of deal with. This is one of those things where you try to ignore the Vindicators and touch everything else to play the mission. All in all, Brian showed up and out on that, getting a 95-point win right off the gate. Then he goes into I clicked Liam on accident. I was like, And like Blake said in chat, the Big Mac goes through the crates, right? A lot of the time we think about walls. I would say me too, because we're playing GW terrain. You don't see as much crates on some of the missions. Let's say that I personally play on GTs or RTTs. There's not a lot of crates in every single map and such. When you know you're going to see crates, definitely think about the Big Mac, because it makes a huge difference. Still need War Horde for that, because you gotta make it through the crate, you know. So you need a little bit more umph in your step, right? You need a little short, stimpy legs to get going. Then we have his second game where he's going into Blood Angels. I'm not going to go too deep into this because we know the book's coming out. Most people know Sanguinius do. I would just say that the Sun Sanguinius, boy, we know the detachment rule works really good into orcs. No orc likes to see strength 6 chainswords. And you're like, what? Oh, God. With lance, right? So we have Captain Lamarty's 2 sanguinary priests with jump packs, of course, feel no pains. We have only 1 assault jump pack. Oh, no, that's assault intercessor squad. Of course, there's more than 1 assault intercessor jump pack squads. There's 3 of them, of course. 1 impulsor. This is 3 units of Death Company Marines with jump packs, but only 1 is a 10-man unit. 2 of those are 5-man units. Very deadly. This is looking like a very proficient, optimized Blood Angels list already. You got the Saying Priest, of course, and then you're going to have the veteran guards with jump packs because they have Storm Shields. So you stick those 5-up Feel No Pains on these guys for the actual durability. So Death Company dudes come in kind of like us Orc players think about them. Knobs come in, try to punch you in the face, and then these guys come in to actually survive. And then a Caladius Assassin, because nobody likes the fact that you get Lord of the Seat, so they get to have this guys. So all in all, very standard, stereotypical Blood Angels list. What I would say here is having Gaz does make a difference for the 4 damage, because these 5 of Feel No Pains would be super freaking annoying for you to end up getting through. Also, Orks being able to fight on death makes a big factor here. A big unit of 20 boys really helps you. Your battle wagons being able to keep yourself staged up and protected. Offering Gaz as maybe heroic intervention to jump in and help assist with the battle wagon. That way it can't simply be surrounded, crushed, and then guys can't disembark safely. There's ways that you have to deal with as an Orc player, because the one thing that they normally have is that you have going for you is that you have more units than them. Therefore, you can trade out with them. In this case, you're not really as good at going to trade out. So I'm sure he had a great time figuring this cheeky matchup. Oh, and I almost messed it up again. Of course, we can show the second mission. I got the tournament pack. I don't want to mess that up. This one was Purge the Foe. Oh, so in this case, having a little bit less units than usual might help. And then this was Smoke and Mirrors for this one. Really would like to know who went first on this mission, right? A lot of the time, Orcs would definitely want to go first into the Blood Angel matchup. I'm going to just give it the benefit of what I'm hoping and that he actually went first into this matchup. You know, it really does make a big difference, because Orcs hate when you can get the initiative on them. So it could be that, you know, he took advantage of Smoke and Mirrors if he didn't go first, stuff like that. All in all, this Brian showed that he's fantastic because he put up 100 points on that. Maybe sometimes, guys, just skill set is a player too, right, guys? Just being super good. If you know the other person's army very well and they don't know yours too well, right? You go first as the Orc player at that Big Mac unit, and you end up going first. And normally, a Blood Angels person's like, all right, I'm just gonna put my screens in front of you, and I'm gonna sit back, and I'm so fast with my jump packs, and I'm gonna run and hit you back in response. You're like, I'm gonna run through your screens and then actually hit your nice soft T4 Space Marine bodies, because we all like that. And of course, let's get a shout out to Aaron for 5 WAAAGH Tactic gifted memberships. Whoa, for Aaron, I appreciate that. You get thank you very much. That helps because we do have the interview with Mr. Initiative from 40K in 40 minutes that we're going to be going up. We have a post up right now so that you can actually ask questions that we can ask him during that conversation that we're having. And we have a bunch of different things that are coming forward for our memberships and our tier list. That way they can actually be more valuable to you guys and to everybody that wants to be generous and support us. That way you can get some for actually assisting and helping us too. So thank you guys for that. It means a lot. So thank you, Aaron. Very generous. Whoa, for the Aaron War Boss. And you got your burners back live, huh, buddy? You got your burners back. Your burners made an appearance. Now we're going into his third matchup. Make sure I didn't mess that up yet. Nope. I got everything right. Oh, he did get 100 points on my get here, right? So Brian was on a roll, but then imagine you're the Ork player going up into Brian. You're like, yeah, I get to fight the War Boss. And then he gets 100. You're like, oh. So let's see another Ork players list. Let's see how optimized this Ork players list was. It was a War Horde. He called it Blacktooth Boyz. I like the name. So we have a Beast Boss, Dev Killer Wartrike with the Super Cyborg body, classic, Sense Index, wonderful thing. We were just talking about that today in Discord. We got a Mazrog, 2 Pain Boys, 2 War Bosses, 1 with Cutting But Brutal. Won't follow me, lads. You know what's going on here. We got a Beast Snagger Boy unit, followed by 2 20-man units of boys, 2 trucks, 2 Battlewagons, a Burner Boy unit, 2 Gretchen, 1 4-man unit, Squig Hog Boys, 1 Storm Boys unit, and 1 War Biker unit. So we had the matchup of the Battlewagons. These boys were squaring up, Battlewagon on Battlewagon, with 20-man units of boys with 2 Beast Bosses. These lists, archetypes are looking quite similar. He does have the Death Killer Wartrike for that pace, right? For that 4 of Feel No Pain. Other Ork units don't necessarily like to have to deal with that. And a Feel 5 up Feel No Pain on typically a T5 Ork body. Typically you're going to be wounding them on only on the wall. You're going to be wounding them on 4s. Otherwise, it's on 5s. So the fact that Feel No Pain makes it much harder to get through unless you have Gazgul, Thrakas, or just like with the Squig Hog Boys, just like with things like that. The fact that you have Gaz makes the difference in this matchup. Of course, player potential and skill capability also makes a difference. So shout out to Martin Brown for having to deal with Brian on his way up. Someone knows your army really well and knows your faction. It does make things a lot harder. And him playing the same faction, of course, in the Ork matchup. One thing I want to shout out here is if you're an Ork player going in an Ork player, I find it very important that you talk to the Ork player and you guys come to terms onto who's going to declare the wall first or in the order of operations for declaring wall. It's very, very important, especially if someone's playing Bully Boys and the other guy's not. As far as my understanding goes, based off what I've found in the core rules as to what you should do is, in all fairness, just you roll dice for it to decide who has to call it first, as it's not really a decisive rule that GW's declared, right? Some people go, well, I'm the person going first, so I get to declare it, or I have to declare it, or I get to decide that you declare it. Nowhere in the rules does it say that. I've looked at several times through. If I'm wrong, feel free to show me in Discord or whatever you can be. We can argue about it, but I'm pretty confident in this, that it actually doesn't tell you innately which Ork player should declare it first as how that rule is declared. So you really just roll for it. You guys can maybe flip a coin for it because it does come down to being important sometimes, right? As if someone can know when you're going to WAAAGH, then they can just screen you out. And in this case, you can screen out Brian because he had Big Mac. So shout out there. And shout out to Jay Hoon for 10 WAAAGH Tactic gifted membership. Whoa, for Jay Hoon. Very generous of you, like always get. I love it. And thank you to everybody who's in here. Is that, it's very important because, one, I want Mr. Initiative to have plenty of questions for you gets because he has not put a time limit on me. So, I like to yap. And then 2 is because we are going to expand our tier list. Even the basic entry one, we want to give it more potential, not simply just emojis. We've been holding back on that, but now the time has arrived. So thank you to everybody who's doing that. It means a lot in supporting us, so thank you very much. Very generous of you. And thank you, Blake, for saying that it's true too. Because yes, that's a good tip for the mirror, you guys. Yes, because you do gotta know. And if Wall Day's back, what's good? Wall Day has been a hot. Wall Day's been here since we were like 50 subs. So shout out to Wall Day. Why can't we both just wall? Yeah, you can. All right, so let's go to the fourth matchup. You guys chance getting me here, the slowing things down, but that's okay. I don't mind at all. We're having a good one today, guys. Orks did great, so we're enjoying this. We're enjoying this this weekend, this time, and thank you guys who are here. So in his fourth game, he went into the Black Templars. So he has Righteous Crusaders, and you know this is his his lowest score of the whole event here. Even his loss was a higher score with only a 61-point win here. So the guy put him up for his money. Oh, wait, make sure I didn't mess that up. Hold on. Last game with the Ork player, mission 3. I almost messed that up. Oh, and it was take and hold. Take and hold, hidden supply lines. Take and hold, a very basic, simple game mode. You're playing corners deployment here. Having Brian, if he goes first in this deployment, just running across the middle to the other Ork players' mobs, popping a wall, gas going crazy, punching through those guys could be crazy. But also the mission itself is pretty straightforward, right? Just hold and get 5 points, hold on one, get 5 points. Pretty simple. And before we look at the whole Black Templars list, let me look at the mission now since we're already here. Is it almost exactly the same? Is it exactly the same? It looks like it's the same. Oh, no, it's a little different. Okay. So on his fourth mission, I was looking at the terrain deployment right there, guys. So round 4, we have Burden of Trust, followed by Prepared Positions. I talk about prepared positions all the time for Ork players. Guys, don't sleep on prepared positions as a free strat. You know, we are soft as, toilet paper sometimes. The fact that you can give something like Grots a 6-up invuln and a non-wall turn, or your boys a 6-up invuln and a non-wall turn, that matters. I mean, of course, you're not playing Dread Mob. We're talking about War Horde today, but in general, other players that we're going to talk about, we're going to have this. And then Burden of Trust, not great for Orks because something has to stay alive and stand around, but it is what it is. So let's look at his fourth game now. Black Templars, let's look at this get. And thank you very much, Jay Hoon. So then we have Black Templars. We have Lord Castellan, a chaplain Gurmaldis, High Marshal Helbrick, and a lieutenant with combi weapon. You like that? You like that Space Marine place? All right. So we have a Primaris Crusader squad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, dang. How did no one know this? How did this not come to anyone's attention who is covering Brian, that he had to deal with the notorious Black Templar Tide, the Black Tide, whatever the heck it's called, right? It's Beaky Tide, right? Followed by 2 squads. So if you guys didn't know, this was the version of Green Tide that took over Green Tide because GW nerfed us because they wanted Space Marines to play Green Tide, I guess, right? No, but in all seriousness, this was one of the best performing lists and archetypes across the meta as a whole. A lot of people see it as a nightmare matchup because it's a lot of bodies with, hold on, actually, I have some of these data sheets we can just pull up right now. Boom, right here. So right off the bat, as you can think about, I just showed you, this is the notorious Black Templar, Black Tide list. This is where they just bring 100 Space Marines and they're like, you get a bunch of different rules of critical 5s. Pretty much they think they're Green Tide. But in this case, they also have named characters that they can stick to some of these units that are really make them really optimized. So right here, we have Chaplain Gramaldis. He gives the unit a 5-up Feel No Pain, right, an ability. You can give it the ability to advance in charge or fall back in charge, or you can improve the armor penetration characteristic of this unit as well. You can re-roll the hit roll, and then of course Black Templars themselves with their righteous vows. You can choose to give them a 6-up Feel No Pain to have innately, or you can have lethals if you want for them to have innately. Then you go over to High Marshal Helbrick, who can, again, also, he's in this list as well. He can go with these units. He not only fights like a B6, but he gives the unit critical 5+ on top of himself fighting like a B6. He hands out mortal wounds as well. So we love to see it. We love to see that because we're pretty much dealing with named characters that are punching, being in combat with these very effective units that are making them kind of, durable as well. Yet Brian said, "Come get it, you get." He said, "Come get it," and he brought the Big Macs and the war bosses. I'm sure Gaz was just cleaving through these dudes, right? Can you just imagine Gaz like sweep, just constantly +1 to wound, just punching through them. They're like, "Please, I feel no pain." So I love to see that. Very, very cheeky. Can't tell you exactly how he won this one. A lot of the time you want to say the battle wagon got charges off, held off some of those tied units while other orc units beat them up. You know, the battle wagon can hold something like those beaky space marine bodies, even if they, you know, the ones don't have lethal on critical fives can definitely be holding them longer. So you would have to use stuff like your battle wagons to get in the way, right? Charge some of these bricks that you can, you know, turn them horizontally across the battlefield. Like, no, you guys got to stay back there and make walls with your wagons so that you can countercharge effectively and do the things you actually want to do. Really love to see it that he was able to get stuck in. I'm sure in a weird way, right? Every orc player wants to fight this army. Every other faction's like, we hate this. This is a terrible matchup because it's a very intimidating list. It has very killy, a ton of OC, a lot of bodies. He can actually survive, as in native durability. You know, but orcs, we love that. We love that you give us a bunch of space marine bodies with low toughness because we have the volume. We have the volume and we have a bunch of damage too. So we're just like, bring it. So I love to see it. Love to see it. So, but it was his lowest one, 61 points. So just shout out to Brian for that one, dude, because I'm sure as all the people are going to talk about how Orks did and War Horde's cool and Brian's awesome, which he is, I'm sure that's going to go under the radar that he actually had to walk through all those Black Templar bodies and actually get the W so early, right? Easily, this could have ended up making you lose one of your games in the first 5, right? Easily, that could have been the one that just kept Brian out of this, and we would have never been talked about him. And we have someone in the chat. Let me pull this up. So great job, by the way. So we're going to go into this 5th matchup before I lose my spot. And I'm going to go back to what chat said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. That's the spot. And as for what was chat said, he goes, I'm one of the guys that went 4-1 with my War Horde list in London. Caleb. Mayhem. I like that better. My last match was against Black Templars as well. It was an amazing match. Shout out to you, Get. I did show you up on there to give you credit, represent the Great WAAAGH, the Great WAAAGH. So thank you very much. Thanks for being here. That's fantastic. I love to see people that show up at events and things that I cover show up and like get the recognition, but also make sure that things are a bit more clear. So yeah, and that was the 4th mission, right? So he's playing Burden of Trust against all these bodies with prepared position. So that guy, you know, he gets prepared position too. But who cares, right? I mean, I guess he gets cover, but we don't care. we don't care as Orks. Awesome, love to see it. Now we're going into his 5th matchup. Sorry, guys, you see me clicking around more because I actually have the packet this time. So his 5th game, I have it. Necrons, yes. Okay. So as for his 5th round, we have Scorched Earth, Inspired Leadership. All right. Ooh, you know, this I know for a fact Orc players will hate this deployment. You're looking at this and you're like, God, I sometimes can't fit stuff at the edges and I don't want to be stuck in that last corner piece, right? You don't want to be stacking that last 8x5 inches corner in that back spot, right? Only person you want to put there is some grots or snicker out where you can jump to later, or a shock jump, I guess, whatever. But as for this terrain, as for the shooting lanes, not as horrible. Like you can't sit in one corner and shoot at every single objective marker. Big old fat L pieces of terrain that are sitting here near the middle. A lot of staging points for those 20-man Boyz units along this lower part of the deployment edge. If you guys can see that top part, though, is looking barren, right? Where you guys can see from people who are watching this. Top part of this deployment, that's looking kind of barren for any shooting lanes. Initiative, luckily, this was just a straight up Necron matchup. So not luckily. Sorry. We're going to see if he got lucky with this Necron matchup. So let's take a look at this Necron list where he has Hypercrypt, because Hypercrypt, of course, making their appearance again. We have 2 Hexmark Destroyers. That's fun. Silent King, Transcendent Catan, 1 5-man unit of Immortals, a Canoptic Spider unit, Death Marks, Flayed Ones, 2 individual Locust Destroyers, 1 Heavy Destroyer, a Monolith, and a Tesseract Vault. Ta-da! That's why I was trying to bring up here. As for this one, right, why I said where you can actually fit and what are the lines of sight, it's because we know that those monoliths and that Tesseract Vault, the Silent King, are just trying to drop down somewhat near each other, take firing positions, and just hold up a place on an objective marker if they can land there kind of early. Really, really annoying sort of matchup and archetype. You do have 2-up armor saves on these monoliths and Tesseracts. The Flayed Ones allow you to infiltrate, and then the Death Marks allow you to, I believe, deep strike. And then we have the little 5-man unit of Immortals. He doesn't have the bomb, right? And I actually think it's worse. I can't think of the character right now, off the top of my head. But when you have the 10-man brick and the critical 5+s from the, I think, Chronomancer or something, I find that to be a lot more potent for Ork players, whether it's our vehicles or our main models of units. This guy went for a little bit more of eliteness, a little bit for just big monster killy stuff with this Tesseract Vault. Having that 10-man unit of Immortals with their critical 5+s would be devastating to an Ork list like this, where they could just take the lines of fire and shoot you away kind of reliably. This does take you being a KG player, right? 89-point win for him here, but you do have to be a KG player on this one. Really take advantage. Pop, here we go. There are stages right here in the middle. Whenever you think of Plasmaster, thank you. When you're thinking about how people are using gas, guys, a lot of the time you're just sticking gas kind of somewhere right here in that middle terrain piece. You can look at either one of these middle terrain pieces here. Stick him right in there. He comes right out of the deployment zone, and then he's ready to wall. Whatever side of the table you have to commit to, his 12-inch Ork can go it off, but he's really meant to just punch away things that are coming to the middle, or you here we go them and threaten another deployment or objective marker, which a lot of the time these Necron lists, when they're bringing the Silent King and they're bringing the Monolith, they're going to try to stat check you and just stand an objective. At the end of the day, they have to stand the objective marker with this hypercrypt list. That's where it's time for you, when they commit to the objectives, to commit with your WAAAGH and to commit with gas to be the one to get here we go, because you need him to punch away the Monolith. You get rid of the Monolith on this list, or you take down the Silent King. Much more winnable game. Luckily, he didn't have the Plasmancer, because as much Brian's fantastic, probably could have still figured it out, but that makes it much harder. Then we go into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So his 6th game, as he's getting to the big boy tables, because he's already at the big boy tables. 3, 4, 5, 6. He went into the Adepta Sororitas. So you had to deal with the sisters. The sister meta is here, guys. Everybody knows it. Goodness, this is gonna be a long one, guys, because I'm not even done with Brian's yet, and we're already 30 minutes in. That's what I'm talking about. So we have the sisters. This is the penitent host, so not the bringers of flame, so we have 2 Ministorum priests and a triumphant thing Catherine. Triumphant thing Catherine's like on every list, right? Love her little aura abilities. I think that's pretty cool. 1 emulator, 3 units of Arcoflagellants. 2 of them are 10-man units and 1 3-man unit. These guys are so cool for their data sheets. Like, they get feeling all pains and large volume punches, but they are terrifying for an Ork unit to actually see. Like the 20-man unit, the Boyz. Don't like to see an Arcoflagellant unit just stand up against them and charge into them. Wouldn't really love that. 3 Castigators, 1 Dominion squad, 3 Repentia squad, and a Caladius assassin. All right. Got to give a shout out to the Burner Boys here, because that's where the Burner Boys shined, right? We talked about that when we said with this list. A lot of times people are bringing flash kits for this kind of matchup, right? A lot of time I want flash kits for Arcoflagellants or for my T3 kind of matchups. Here, this is where you want Burner Boys. He was putting them inside of Battlewagons a lot of the time if the Boys weren't sitting in there. Say he had 1 boy unit in a Battlewagon, the other one might have a Burner Boy unit in there, the Knob unit in there, acting like a SWAT team jumping off platform. This is one of those matchups where you do have to be proficient in combat, proficient in screening, because Arcoflagellants are to be respected into your big bricks of boys. So you're going to have to kind of draw them out, and or just straight up put pressure on these castigators, because sisters are one of those detachments where you're going to stick them in their deployment zone. Yet when you go to meet them in that mid table, that's where they like to do a lot of damage. They're not necessarily going to chase you down and punch you in your deployment zone. So it is a KG kind of way to play, and he definitely had to be optimized there. Yet he got a 100-point win. So part of me thinks that he was just awesome and knew what he was doing, that he went first here and that he just ran them down. So I love to see it. Then we go into his final big boy game. So at this point, he's 6-0 already. He's 6-0. Oh, hold on. Almost messed that up, guys. In his 6th round against that sisters player, it was Terraforma and Hidden Supplies. Boom. Deployment, in my opinion, again, favors Orks when you can just go long ways, whether it's horizontally long ways, whether it's hamburger or hot dog deployment, whatever you guys want to call them. Orks like when you just have to go across the table on them, even 20, especially when you're playing mobs, 20-man Boyz units here. Everything can kind of get a staging spot. Everything can kind of flood the whole board and not really just focus on one location. And this mission kind of helps it as well for being hidden supplies. So then we're going to go into his big boy games, like I meant. Sorry, I should have said that earlier, guys. Sorry. Then we go into his game 7. He doesn't have the players list that he was going into on that, but I will show you the mission. So for the 7th one, he has Linchpin with inspired leadership. This one is a little bit more open, I would say, in some regards. You see these big open pockets that if someone's fast enough, they can get lines of fire into like any of your units, and it does have the ladder deployment in the way too. So I was kind of, I mean, I think I actually have like what he went into. Hold on, I know what he went into his 6th game. I just can't pull up the list. It was, or could I not? It was Black Templar, Sister Necrons. Is that Adeptus Mechanicus? No, I think this guy's Adeptus Mechanicus. Yeah, I guess we don't really get to see who that guy was. What's going on with this game? So he got an 100 point win against that guy. Don't know what happened to that guy. Don't know what his list is, but we do know what his mission is. Mission was Linchpin, inspired leadership. We're gonna leave it at that for now, just because I don't want to guess anything. Like I said, hopefully I could talk to Brian one day and he can clear this up. But we'll move on to round 8 because there was still a lot going on, where he ended up going into, and I do have this one, round 8. I've had so many games, guys. I hardly ever color games this many. Like I said, where he went into the Adeptus Mechanicus, right? Always catching people a little off guard in the meta right now, Adeptus Mechanicus. So we have Skitarii Hunter Cohort. He has 3 marshals, 1 tech priest manipulist. Pretty light on the characters. 1, 2 units of rangers. There's 3 units of vanguards, 2 dune riders, a 3-man unit of iron striders, 1 6-man unit of breachers, a 5-man unit of stalkers. Actually, 3 5-man units of stalkers. Excuse me. A unit of sterilizers, 2 units of infiltrators, and a big brick of rust stalkers for that punching potential. A lot of little T3 units, a lot of little bodies on the field. These bodies just simply don't have the staying potential to play the primary necessarily. Like they're respectable. They're respectable to punch you away with their offensive output. They do have a lot of small arms fire, and able to kill you as an orc player is just where they want to meet you for that fight in the mid table. Is kind of where you thrive instead of them. Of course, you got to like the fact that he actually has burner boys here. Like I said, a lot of orc players, it would behoove you to actually incorporate some kind of tech to deal with 10-man units of T3 models, whether it's burner boys or flash kits, whatever it may be. You want something else that can go out there and kind of get in some scraps and some skirmishes in this. And I'm sure that player was just a good player too, because to even get that far with Adeptus Mechanicus is just unheard of. But yeah, burners go hard here. Burners go hard in that matchup. And it does make a difference when you have those guys, promise you. When you can just get into here and you're like, yes, I have my little unit here that can shoot them, and then burners actually punch. They miss because they hit on 4th, but it's -2 AP, and then they're actually tough enough to stay there in the fight against other 10-man units of T3 stuff. So kind of cool. Pretty cool. So then he goes and he wins that one into Adeptus Mechanicus. Now it's getting to the end, and he gets to 84 win of Adeptus Mechanicus. Now it's down to his last 2 games. Oh, did I mess that up? Mission 8, mission 9, 10. Okay, I messed that up yet. So Adeptus Mechanicus was Purge the Foe. All right. So against Adeptus Mechanicus, he was playing Purge. Oh, okay. See, I should have pointed that earlier. Then it would make a lot more sense. If you're playing Adeptus Mechanicus on Purge the Foe, you're definitely having an advantage here. There are a bunch of T3 models. He had a bunch of little units that are pretty cheap. He can actually chew them out and tag them up and kill them pretty badly. Nice. Then he goes into mission 3, which is mission 3. What the heck? He goes into round 4, which is Scorch Earth with mission rule as stalwarts. Okay. And I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm taking a look at the deployment too, guys, because this is not what I play on the UKTC. To American players, I'm sure you're looking at this too, like, what would I do here? Don't hate it. Remember, he has 2 Battlewagons, and like I said, what he showed, and I can see what I'm digging what he chose for this list, and that I've seen him play War Games Live on the last mission. A lot of the times what he was doing here, guys, you see this big terrain in the middle with those 2 big gray pieces. A lot of the time, he simply took a 20-man unit of boys, stuck them in there because it's a deployment zone, it's safe to deployment, and then stuck gas near them, stuck them in the deployment zone, safe for them to be there. That way they can, here we go. They're close to the enemy deployment zone. Good for stacking with gas. And then if you look on this left side, if you're looking at the screen, right, the left side, that would be a good deploy terrain piece, LPs right there for the second battle wagon with another 20-man unit of Boyz in there as well. And then on the right side of the screen is where you kind of commit more to, hey, a knobs unit with burners can sit here and threaten that objective to run over there. Different SWAT team can threaten to go over there as well. So the beast boss, beast snagger boys can stage up in a little truck here, or they can just jump out and fight where the toughest thing on the table is. So I like that. I like that deployment. I like his list for that deployment. Excuse me. Oop, clicked that too early. For his deployment. So I like to see that. Then let's see, and he went to his 9th round. So that's his 9th mission, nice deployment. What is he going through his 9th? I clicked him, sorry. For his 9th mission, he went to the Tau Empire. So hey, I'm glad that he had the terrain because it looks kind of nice if you're flying against Tau. So he went to Kayun, where he had 2 units of Cadre Fireblade, followed by a Commando Shadow Sun, 2 Breacher squads, 2 Devilfish, 1 unit of the Star Scythe battle suits, a Ghost Keel, 1 unit of Pathfinders, a Piranha, 3 Riptide battle suits, 3 stealth suits, and a Tiger Shark. Hey, he decided to bring the Tiger Shark. That's fun. So you see, he has plenty of infiltration. Obviously, he has scouting. He has high damage with the Riptides. They also have the 2 up armor saves to help him survive that. Pathfinders for helping with the guide, some good breachers for when you get close to the deployment zone. At the end of the day here, like we said when we pulled up the actual mission and deployment, look at that for Tau. Yeah, he can get line of fire to shoot these things, but he has to come contest them and play them. You can see that there's multiple pieces of terrain here where, one, on the right side of the field, you can threaten with your Ork player on the wall turn. You can go punch him through that L piece of terrain if you stage behind it, tagging it with like infantry or something. And then on the left side of the field, you have the L shape that's near your deployment where you can stage up. You can actually tag it. He has to come out and try to defend and contest you there. That means when you go for the middle, Big Mac plus gas plus the units there just run straight through this. Can get really swampy. Not saying it was easy. Of course, it was scorched earth, but the fact that I can see the staging positionings here, and the more I'm looking at these deployments and the more that I'm looking at how the terrain was laid out, the more I appreciate Brian's list. It was such a good read by him. To look at the terrain layout in this match and the terrain layouts and the deployments and realize where he can put his battle wagon and the fact that he pretty much always stage a 20-man unit of Boyz with gas near the middle and just straight up threaten. So I freaking love that. I love it. Brian, great job, dude, so far. I'm appreciating it more and more. Then we go into his 4th game. Why did I say random numbers? Then we go into his last game, round 10. Round 10, take and hold. Of course, I think that's pretty sick that they made it like a pretty simple primary rule for take and hold. Corners deployment, inspired leadership as the mission rule. Everything pretty basic here. Again, you can see the terrain where you're able to stack up a 20-man unit of Boyz and gas. This one is looking a bit open. If you look at these sides of the battlefield, holy crap, right? The places where you're not your natural, like you're not natural expansion objective marker is just, yeah, it's close to you and such, but God, there's nowhere to stand on some of these on the other side, right? If you had to attack the left northern quadrant objective marker as an Ork player, you're just running across no man's land. Like, what's going on here? Oh my goodness. Good dude. They have this open up. My gosh, Brian. I don't, goodness. On the right side, though, that's a little bit more dense, but you pretty much have to play to the side of the field, which shout out to Brian, because when you watch this on War Games Live, he did play to that side of the field. But goodness, looking at this, it just looks so wide open. So wide open. So let's take a look at Liam's list, who had, from what I understand, quite an off-meta CSM list. And I love to see it, because I'm just going to say it right here. I love Fabius Bao. He's like the only chaos person. He's like the only person that I don't like that's an Ork this much. That I think is pretty awesome. So I think it's cool. So he says CSM. So we have a Chaos Lord, we have Cypher, Fabius Bile, Huron Blackheart, and Lucius the Eternal. Bunch of name characters. Funny enough, 2 of these are Emperor's Children characters exclusively, so pretty cool. I'll show their data sheets in a bit. We have a cultist, 2 Legionnaires, 2 units of Noise Marines, 2 Rhinos, 2 Predator Destructors, followed by 2 units of Chosen and 2 units of 2-man's Obliterators. So a couple things here that's pretty crazy. the Ork players aren't used to right now, currently in the meta. Obliterators, being able to indirectly line of sight shoot you is pretty annoying. It is only 24 inches, but it does mean that one, he can try to chew through your gas bodyguards a little bit too early. That'd be pretty problematic. 5-man units of knobs can shoot through them if they disembark and they're kind of trying to stage up, or as can happen in this, as we see him in War Games Live, pretty sure he used them to try to shoo away some of the boys before the boys could even get involved in the game. This is a very shooting heavy list as a whole. He does have combat, combined arms. He has chosen. He has the 5-man unit chosen to go alongside it. He has the legionnaires who can fight when they have named characters attached to them, like Lucius. He has Neumarines who shoot moderately well and are pretty cheap. One thing I want to bring up here is that he has Fabius Bile, who Fabius Bile is very unusual, like if you're not used to him. But one thing he does, he gives +1 toughness to units that are in his unit. He gives +1 toughness to them. He can also turn a damage to damage 0. So if gas goes into him, he can do that. And then also he can get back up on a 2+ if he's destroyed. So he has a lot of cool passive abilities. He does have weird little Churgeon dudes right here with the acolytes that are attached to him. He has an anti-2+ infantry gun that's 2 damage. He fights moderately well. The one thing about him is that because Orks are simply one phase kind of army for the most part, is you're not going to shoot away his unit and him. So you're going to end up having to fight him, which means he's going to get back up. So that can be obviously problematic for some secondaries and some mission play. And then having something like Mr. Cypher, of course, like Lord of the Sea, as we talked about, having Lucius the Eternal for his precision, named characters. Of course, Orks hate that too. So all in all, there's a lot of problems going into this. Veterans of the Long Wars, like their version of Gladius, and they could just re-roll hits with their oath target and stuff like that. So it was a hard matchup, and you can watch this on War Games Live. So Brian didn't pull out, but it's all good. So shout out to Brian for going 8-1. Whoa, for Brian and his War Horde. So let's take a look at his list one more time. We have Ghazghkull Thraka, a beast boss, 2 mechs, big mechs, with Drillas for that damage 3. 1 has Follow Me Lads, 3 war bosses, 1 with Cunning but Brutal for the fallback and charge potential, 1 10 unit of Snaggers, 2 20-man unit of Boyz, 2 5-man units of Burners with custom Mega Blasters, 2 10-man units of Gretchen, 2 Mega Knobs for Gas, 1 5-man units of Knobs with Power Claws, 2 Battlewagons, both with hard cases, and then 2 trucks for them SWAT teams for that transport potential. So shout out to Brian. Whoa, and Brian, if you ever see this or anybody knows him, give him a shout out. Maybe we can talk one day so the Ork community can know what's going on, because I'm sure plenty of gits want to use their big mets that they got from their big Battle Force box, right? So shout out to him for that. Now we move on to the next lad who was also at the London GT. We have the one and only Graham Russell. So yes, we have covered my boy Graham Russell here before. So maybe there's a little bit of bias here, some of you may say, but really the reason I like to talk about his list is because his specific style of Dread Mob isn't so linear as to I'm just running a Stampa or I'm just running a bunch of DACA potential. He likes to mix things up. He likes to mix in some of our more known tools and abilities, then he likes to incorporate different walkers into his Dread Mob list. So a lot of people see Dread Mob lists and they don't think they can run their walkers. Graham's messing with this list on and off for a while, really trying to figure it out, pick it. You can pick his head in the Discord a bit about this. And he's been consistently about 4-1, sometimes 3-2 with this archetype. So I like to show it off because a lot of Ork players are down and out about our walkers, and they're right to be. They're a bit overpriced. They're unreliable at times to a certain degree, but when you stick to something, you can end up being really quite efficient at it and make it work like Mr. Graham is doing. Or let's say you're not even a tournament player, you can stick to your walkers, and then if GW decides to give him a point decrease, then you already have a foundation for how you're playing your list. It'll only get better. So I'm here to encourage you, and so is Mr. Graham Russell. So he actually did give me some notes. Now we can go over it. Pretty straightforward and smooth because we've talked about some of this before. So let's take a look at how he did him. Let's take a look at his list. So he's downsized some of his characters here, as he always likes to go a little light on there. As you can see, he doesn't have my boy Zod. So he has 2 Big Mac shock attack guns, 1 with Get Finder goggles, and a Ghazghkull Thraka. Boom, that's it. 3 characters. Nothing else. Just, well, I guess Makari too. But he brought Gaz. Yes, he brings Gaz on his Dread Mob list very consistently, and his title of his list is actually Gaz is Marvelous. So he has a 10-man unit of Boyz. He used to have more. He dropped down to just 10. I think just 10 is where you want it to be. You don't need a bunch of these Boyz units because their ability goes off at the end of the command phase, right? And so in that case, you really just do it on your home objective. Not often you're going to survive anywhere in the open again for it to go off again. If you do, awesome. He then has one big unit of Gretchen, followed by 4 basic 10-man units of Gretchen. What I want to say here is the 20-man unit of Gretchen. As you can see, is there is no Zodrod. I asked him explicitly, why would you do that? Why'd you do that, my buddy? And it was very clear and very straightforward. He says through a lot of testing that he's done, he's able to draw out Call the Horde from the enemy and force them to recycle that secondary. So even at this event where he went 4-1, 3 of his games, I believe, maybe more, I'll check the notes, the enemy drew Call the Horde, and then because he actually had a Horde in this backfield objective screening and they couldn't kill it, they simply had to discard a CP for it, draw a secondary, and sometimes scored it, sometimes didn't. So you're able to just simply draw a CP for them or even reduce their scoring potential. He has 3 trucks, followed by, again, a 5-man unit of Burner Boys, and then a 5-man unit of Flash Kids, a Gorkanaut, and then a 6-man unit of Killicans, all with rockets. Yes, he's still on the Killicans. Me and him have talked about it. I go, why don't you want to split them up? You know, and he says, we're really what it is when it's time for them to shine and you get them into the target you need them to do, only they do what they do reliably enough with the CP potential, right? Of course, you can give them Daka so they re-roll the hit roll. You can give them big shells for bigger kids. Or in reality, you give them clinking claws. You can get up to strength 10, then on the wall, strength 11, damage 4. It really makes a difference. So it's a very unique tool that he really put a lot of practice into getting it to work. 2 looted units with the rockets. He chooses the rockets because there's blast everywhere in the game and elite infantry. Might as well just try to get the most shots out of that. 2 mega knobs, and then a 5-man unit of 2 5-man units of Storm Boys. So that's his list. I like it because he incorporates the walkers that we all love to see. So let's see my get path to victory for Graham Russell. And like I said, I have some notes. But this one was pretty straightforward. So he had Imperial Knights, Canis Rex, 1, 2, 3, 4 Helvrins, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4 Warglaves, a Clades Assassin, a Subductor Squad, and then a Voidsman at Arms Squad. Ork players, if you're not familiar with this is a Subductor Squad. Another reason why I say be prepared for 10-man units of T3 guys. This Subductor Squad has a built-up 4-up invuln onto a 10-man unit of basic infantry guys. They have a little bit of fighting potential, not really anything to be scared of, but their 4-up invuln acts as a great screen for orcs. Great way to get us stuck in and clogged up, just because they're really annoying like that. Normally, yeah, your boys can punch them away, but you don't really want to overcommit things on points. So having stuff to just clear chaff away like this does come up in a way, and I love to see it. One thing here, though, as I would say for this matchup, is that actually, I wanted to read one note that Mr. Graham gave me before I start going into everything right here. Is he pretty much said, and he said this as a note, and I think it's good for everybody to think about this as food for thought as we go forward. He goes, I think looking at the results from the whole tournament, it's more about the skill sets of playing the game rather than the army and the stat list that's checking you. So he's innately saying here that, yes, looking back on this and looking back at how he did and how people do as a whole, he really felt like the skill set and everything that he was going into it, putting into it, made a big difference to all his games and his matchups, more than the enemy's list or even his own list to a certain extent, even though he really much likes his list. But what he did say about this first game is good win. He tabled his opponent by round 4, and then he got gas into Canis Rex, killed him in one go. So, of course, you're playing into Imperial Knights, and you get gas into Canis, pretty much dirt net for Canis at that point. And then the little dude pops out, I'm free, and then Storm Boy comes and beats him up, hopefully. So then we go into his second matchup, where he went into Tau. We called it Sustain 2 Triptide. Right? Everybody loves those Triptides. So we have a Cadre Fireblades, 2 of those, and then a Dark Strider, followed by 3 units of Breachers, a Strike Team, 3 Devilfish, followed by 1 Broadside unit of Broadside Battlesuits, 1 Pathfinder unit, a Piranha unit, 3 units of the Riptide Battlesuits, a Skyray Gunship, 2 stealth battle suit. Oh, sorry, 3 stealth battle suits for that infiltration capability, and that's it. Like always, a lot of little units of Tau all over the battlefield with scouting and infiltration, with their nice riptides for their high damage octane potential. Oh, and let me pull up the mission. Sorry, I should have shown this earlier. Anyways, even though we went over this for Brian's list, because I have the tournament pack, it's important that we get context for each of these. So for his first mission, where he went into the Imperial Knights, it was on Terraform, Swift Action, and he tabled him by round 4. Now, round 2, he's going into Tau, and this is Purge the Foe and Smoke and Mirrors. I personally think that, Purge the Foe on typical Ork lists, like let's say you play a War Horde MSU into Tau, it can be challenging because they can kill a lot of your units. Yet in this matchup, where Graham's a bit more elite, has some big killy units going into Tau units, and the fact that he can actually shoot these guys away because he has shooting potential, a lot of Overwatch potential, very favorable matchup on Purge the Foe in this mission, and he really made it work. But it's hard to say because, like I said, Tau does do good with Purge the Foe as a whole into Orks generally. I would just say Graham's list helps offset that difference. As for what he said, as into this matchup, he said it was a close game, and that he did good to make trades on all these small units, because even though he's really elite and he's Purge, actually being able to get the trades but still accomplish the mission other than just killing screens is the problematic matchup. So getting the trades here requires Overwatch, requires the Ludas, requires the Flamer Boys and the Flash gets getting out and actually getting their kills in. And he's saying that he pretty much spiked 16 points, turn 4 from Purge the Foe, and then Ludas were his MVPs this game. Not really surprised to see it, right? Anybody knows, not really surprised to see it. 92-point win right there. Let me get rid of some of these boys right here. And then we go into his third game. 83 points for his third game. I got to see what that mission was. Oh, take and hold, and mission rules, hidden supply lines. Take and hold, one of the missions where you can just score constantly, guys. So I like to see it. And then he went to Drkari for his third game, and he did end up losing this game in his third game. And I do have his notes as for that and some things I want to show you. So we have Drkari sitting with an Archon, another Archon, and another 3 Archons, followed by a Beastmaster and Lilith Hexbrass. I'm going to show you the Beastmaster. I think it's important. We have 1 unit of Kabalite Warriors, 1 unit of Witches, followed by 2 Raiders, 3 Venoms, a Court of the Archon, 2 Chronos, Incubi, another 5-man unit of Incubi, 2 units of Mandrakes, and then 2 units of Scourges, followed by a Void Raven Bomber. Pretty interesting to see there, right? He said in this game it was very close. He ended up scoring poorly early on primary, so he went for the secret mission, scored Unbroken Wall, but came up 7 points short. So on this one, he actually had to go for a secret mission to go for the primary late game to do Unbroken Wall. One thing to keep here in mind, guys, as for my, he didn't put this in the notes, but as for my speculation, as for a part of the reason why he did end up playing a little bit slower on primary is because he did have to go into, and I have a third mission. I have this here. Yeah, I was taking hold. And you can see you're playing 4 corners. Pay attention to if someone has a Beastmaster unit. Why is that? Well, as you can see, he's playing 4 corners, easy to get blocked off here. What does that really well? Well, something that scouts 9 inches with a 7 model unit, which each unit has a 12-inch movement, right? And then you also can advance. So these guys are hoofing it as a minimum of 22 inches. 22 inches from their deployment zone. They're like, getting across the battlefield. And these guys have a dumb ablative wounds. Because the different wounds are among all 4 of these little individual units, right? He has 3 of these Razor Flocks. He has, I think, 2 of these Chimera guys. He has 1 Clawed Fiend, and then he has the Beastmaster. So if it's damaged 2 weapons, he'll put them into his flocks to try to disperse some of your weapon damage. If it's damaged 3 weapons, he can put them into the Chimera guy and then into the Flawed Fiend, and then into the Razor Flock guys. So you can end up losing damage into this. And they are T4 as well. So even a unit of Boyz or even a unit of Burner Boys doesn't feel necessarily as good into them. This is very much a flash get sort of unit, wants to get into that. But they guys already did the deed. they can simply walk right up to your deployment zone. Like I said, you can see here, it's a 4 corners deployment. Graham doesn't have any scouting of his own or infiltration. Therefore, the enemy unit also does have infiltration because he has mandrakes. He's able to simply stage up, run across the battlefield, make a nice line wherever what he deems is Mr. Graham's problematic unit, and then hold it back. That's most likely, in my opinion, how you end up losing out on primary. Great job on getting the secret mission, because that's not easy for orcs to do. So something for us all, for food for thought, to keep in mind, guys. Like I always say, it's hard to, right? Because Mr. Graham Bliss is already really well-rounded. Hard for him to kind of fit any kind of infiltration. It'd be very expensive for us to fit infiltration, but that's food for thought for the future. If points changes come up, as we know they are, and infiltrators go down, and you're looking at this kind of list archetype, you can know what kind of weaknesses you might have. You never know. But that's something that we constantly see when looking at this Dark Eldup sort of matchup, is something like the Beastmasters is an annoying sort of matchup. But shout out to him for getting Unbroken Wall there. Like to see that. Then he goes into his 4th game. And let's look at the 4th game mission. It is Burden of Trust, and then prepared positions. Ooh, I like to see that. We know Mr. Graham has a bunch of unit of grots. So we have Chaos Space Marines, Emperor's Children. He has Cypher, Dark Commune, another Dark Commune, and then a triple Dark Commune, followed by Lucas the Eternal. 2 units of Cultist, followed by 4 units of Noise Marines, 2 Rhinos, 3 units of the Accursed Cultist, followed by 3 Bikers units, and then 2 Chaos Predator Destructors with the autocannons for additional AP. So his Norts for this was Skin of the Teeth win. Was a massively behind on primary again, completing Broken Wall on turn 5 and scored 32 primary, won by 2 points. In this mission, you have to be careful because these Dark Communes with the Accursed Cultive units can simply scout across the battlefield and then run into you. Actually, is it a scout? Let me look into this. I know they can advance and charge across the battlefield. And get into you. Sorry, I've only got a couple practice games into this list, but this list is super annoying when you're an orc player, just because these guys can like just throw the distance down in your face and really cover that distance. Yeah, they do scout. All right, making sure. So they do scout 6 inches, and then they can also advance and charge because they can get that from their detachment ability. So these guys can cover the distance. They can really beat you up also with something like killicans because they have guys in this unit. Maybe it's in the actual cult, the Dark Commune unit, right? I'm not sure which guy it is in there, but there's a couple guys in the unit that actually punch quite well. And these, I think it's these Torment or the Hidden Mutations, whatever. It's some of these guys that actually get damage to pretend profiles. Nonetheless, just know as an orc player, these guys can stack a bunch of offensive capabilities, charge the battlefield down into you, punch away units that are T6, killicans. They can one-shot a gas unit if he only has 2 mega knobs in them. They can punch away units of Boyz. Very potent, very fast. Does take you to screen a lot with grots, slowly, meticulously move your way up the field because killicans, Gorkanauts, whatever, can decimate those units once they do, which is pretty much what Mr. Russell did, because he had to methodically make his way up the battlefield so he can score a secret mission and dissect and kill these units. Easier said than done, because I know I personally had to deal with that matchup and it was quite annoying. But looking at how many grots he has, how many trucks he has, could help them do that. Having Ludas, so when they do come out into the open and they try to run across the battlefield, you can overwatch them. If they run to objective to try to take you off it, you can overwatch them and kind of pick them up like that too. They're very soft bodies for damage too, so that feels good too. So shout out to them for killing that. He said he only won that game by 2 points. Very tough matchup. Very tough matchup. Love to see it. Love to see that. Yep. And then we go into his game 5. So into his game 5. He went into Eldari. We have Avatar of Cain, Solitaire, the Fist Arc, Yavarin, Artag Waveleaper, Farseer, Spirit Seer, 1 Howling Banshee, Ranger unit, Swooping Hawks, a Trope, 2 units of Warp Spider, and a big fat unit of Wraith Guard with Wraith Cannons. So for this one, as for his notes, he said it was, make sure I didn't mess this up. I showed the mission for 4, and this is the mission for 5. So he went into Scorched Earth Inspired Leadership, which in Teldar they'll scorch some earth on you and try to, well, at least try to do that on you. So let's see what he says for his notes. He says, Game 5 with Eldar. It was scorched earth. We both set up our armies to get 10 on primary. Because that's the thing with Scorched Earth, guys. You got to keep in mind if you're a newer player. Scorched Earth is very much you get 10 points, I get 10 points. You get 10 points, I get 10 points. And you keep doing that until you get to the end of the mission. If you're going second, there's a chance you can try to burn one. And that can kind of offset the points there. It's very much that you already, as the player, know I have to be smart if going in second here to really make the difference sometimes as this. And then he said, sorry, I was reading his notes. And he goes, we both set up armies to get first turn. We just poked out at each other until the other one made a mistake. Exactly. Because I'm going to get 10. You're going to get 10 based off what Scorched Earth is. And he said, I was burning the center objective with a unit of Grots, Gaz, and the Gorkanaut sitting behind the counter. He sent a solitaire out to take out the Grot units, and he did a heroic intervention with the Gorkanaut that he also ended up failing to kill the Grots with the solitaire. So the Grots survived and were able to burn the secondary. The Gorkanaut killed his solitaire, got extra movement to get into range of his Wraithguard unit, and then it ended up killing those guys. Eventually, his Gork got into the enemy's objective on turn 5, and he ended up not walling until turn 4 until this matchup. As you can see by Mr. Graham, if you haven't caught on by now, he's playing very cheeky and cagey and patient for all of these matchups. He wasn't willing to lose round 3 or 4 by running out early. He was behind on primary, and he still went for a secret mission, knowing that I can push them back later and make the difference up. He did lose their third game from doing that, but he came close, and then it made the difference on the second game. Then we're here again in the game 5, his fourth game. Now we're here again, game 5, where he knows, okay, I have to play very cagey, and he didn't want until turn 4. Turn 4. That's because in this mission, like I said, a lot of the times you just want to end up purging someone's home objective or purge something in the middle of the table by turn 5, just to offset a little bit of that point difference. And he says, I don't put the Gork out in the open to get killed. Turn 1 through 3, I tie my opponents up with Grots and trucks, and I hit them hard with the second to last part of the game. I make sure I have assets left to do secret missions. So as you can see, that's his notes for what he was saying as well. He did that. Let me pull it back. So all in all, that was how he ended up winning that one with this one, because I actually want to show his score right here. So he ended up getting a 95-point win there. So you get 4-1. But like I said, as I show you his list, what his notes said, as to if you want to get an idea of how more or less he was running this list, that a lot of the times he doesn't throw his Gorkanaut away turn 1, 2, or 3. A lot of people, whether you're in the Discord or a new player, you go, I'm going to throw my Gorkanaut right up into the middle of the table, turn 2 when I WAAAGH. He's going to run into a stupid little screen, and then the enemy's going to hit him with anti-tank. I'm sorry. A lot of the time when I tell people, when they're saying, why do I bring 20-man units of Grots? Why am I bringing these big bricks of Grots? Why am I bringing a bunch of 10-man units of Grots? What's the point of them? The point of them is to charge things that don't want to kill Grots. Charge them into a Redemptor Dreadnought. He gets 5 punches. He's not killing the Grot unit, especially on the wall. And in this case, Russell Graham does the inverse on the enemies, where he throws a bunch of these trash stuff out. He throws trucks out. He throws burner boys with trucks and inside those trucks out. He throws the Storm Boy, maybe 5-man units out. He throws Grots up there, and he starts tagging people. He starts drawing out units to charge them in skirmishes. Then when his reliable killing units come out to play, they have stuff to kill and pick up. And last but not least, like Mr. Graham said, he says he's very happy with this list. He's got a good balance of shooting and killing, shooting, combat killing, and scoring potential. It's definitely more about being cunning than brutal. And it's more about being cunning than brutal because he's still playing with overpriced Walker vehicle units that are doing a very distinct job at killing our hard matchups. Therefore, he has to throw away all these little units like the 10-man units of Boyz and the Gretchen and the trucks to draw enemies more valuable assets, kill them, and then score those points later in the game. Takes a high-level player to do that, because a lot of the time people are only looking at the first 3 turns. They don't even care to get to turn 4 and 5. They're just trying to kill you. That also sets the difference. If you're trying to look at Mr. Graham's list and you go, I can't make walkers work, they're not working for me, killer cans suck. You know what? I'm someone who's having a hard time with killer cans too, right? But that's because there's a lesson that even I can learn from Mr. Graham. is patience is a virtue, and being cunning is equally as effective as being brutal. So shout out to Mr. Graham for the wall of the Walker Wall. I love to see it. Love to see it. Now we go on to the last get, but the final get, but not least of the gets. We have Courtney Rhodes with his Green Tide list. Guys, Green Tide has finally made a comeback. Someone ran Green Tide, and he ran them at the same event. So Mr. Courtney Rhodes did run the Green Tide that was nerfed into oblivion, and he's still making them rise. So let's take a look at his list real quick. Green Tide lists aren't too differing or surprising sometimes, but very important things we should talk about, because there's just one change. They're not one change. There's just a couple data slates changes. I should say that's better. There are a couple point changes and data slate changes away from being a very effective archetype to run. So I still think Ork players have to pay attention. We have 3 war bosses, 1 with bloodthirsty belligerence, and then simply 1 weird boy. Boom, he went thin on the characters. I think you want to do that. Don't give up double fixed. A lot of the time, the other fixed secondaries are really low scoring, hard to pull off. People don't really want to do them. They want to do 2 killing ones, right? They want to do bring it down and assassinate, or they want to do assassinate and call the horde, right? And a lot of the time they want to do that, and they want it to be purge the foe so they can just invest everything in killing in you. So if you just take away one of their secondary killings, a lot of the time just fix doesn't become interesting to them anymore, and then you don't have to worry about that. He also went a little lighter on the boys. So he has 2 10-man units of boys, followed by 3 20-man units of boys, 2 trucks, a Battlewagon with hard case, 5 5-man units of flashgits, 5 knobs with power claws, 1 unit of Gretchen, followed by 2 Stormblade units, and a War Bikers unit. Bam, nice and simple. War Bikers want to do secondaries for you, and they can actually survive to do them. A lot of these different secondaries are actions, missions, secondary part of the rules that people want to do. Require the unit to kind of stay alive and sometimes stand somewhere you don't want them to stand around, like a Stormblaze unit can. War Biker unit can just do something and actually survive, right? Call sabotage with a War Biker unit. Good chance the knob just survives. And then having Battlewagon, of course, it actually keeps one of your Boyz units safe. A lot of the time people will saturate the board with a lot of Boyz units. In this case, you can't do it anymore. 1 safe's a little safe. 2 trucks, either you're going to use them for SWAT teams, of course. You can use the Battlewagon for SWAT teams, or just put the Bix of Boyz in there. Up to the player and how they're doing it. I don't know Courtney Rhodes. If I had some notes, that'd be pretty cool. But I like that he has the flexibility here. You can look at the matchup and go, okay, I want 5 flash kits in this truck. Oh, I want some Boyz in this truck. I want to get over here quicker. I want to try to sticky this. Oh, I want to run forward in case I run into a melee matchup and they have to take the punch. But if it's a melee matchup, they can't shoot. So I'm going to run them onto this natural expansion objective, and then they're going to disembark, and then I'm going to be able to get it on my next command phase if they don't come away because they can't shoot me, so they have to close the distance. There are ways that you have to think about this when you're deploying these guys. And I like that. Even though it looks very simple, there's diversity here and flexibility in his deployment choices. So let's take a look at his path to victory. So in his first matchup, he went into Dark Angels Gladius Task Force. He has a Apothecary, Biologist, Fire Discipline, Azrael, Captain, and Justiciar. 1 unit of Assault Intercessors, 1 unit of Basic Intercessors, 1 unit of Jump Pack Intercessors, followed by 2 units of Deathwing Knights, an Eradicator Brick. Eradicator Brick is like only looking to kill the Battlewagon, otherwise he has no targets. Big Inceptor Squad with the bolters. That's problematic sometimes. Damage 2, twin length, a lot of double sustain 2. 2 units of these Inner Circle Companions. These guys are really annoying. They are -1 to hit innately, and they're -1 damage. I believe they're -1 damage. Check me on that. 2 units of Scouts. So in this sort of matchup, the Inner Circle Companions are able to put a beat down on Orks for the most part. One of them does get to just where they fight first, yet they don't have a 2-up armor save. They are susceptible to straight up getting killed. And Deathwing Knights are something that you have to kind of just understand you're going to have to deal with as an Ork player for the most part right now. They're all over the meta. They do have reduced damage. Volume of punches can make a difference. Your war boss can get lucky and help punch through that. There are strats to reroll the wound roll. He can only armor of contempt on one of those units as a whole. So there are ways to try to deal with it. In this case, it is about on the go turn where it's time to go. And let me pull up the mission 1 here. I should have done that already, but excuse me. It's Terraform and Swift Action. So he does have the potential to actually offset the scoring based off just the mission and Swift Action. Easier said than done. And it does take the Ork player to be smart. When you are playing with a 20-man unit, the Green Tide, just keep an eye on the fact that you are not looking to straight up go toe-to-toe to kill people. You are going to have to kill a certain amount of the enemy units, right? You're going to have to kill some of these intercessors. You're going to have to kill you're gonna have to screen out the inceptors so they don't come down and just shoot away your black field and score everything they want. But the inner circles, when it's time to go and reroll wounds into them, you can actually kill them because they have 3-up saves. Yes, they're -1 to hit, you're +1 to hit. It can make the difference. They still can end up being brought down. 2 units of Deathwing WAAAGHs are we gonna have to just kind of take the casualty and say I'm not gonna necessarily kill you because then if I charge you, I'm just giving you 2 turns of combats with me. You're trying to deny them primary for the most part with this. So right off the bat, I understand that Mr. Courtney Rhodes is playing well with the Green Tide list because he had to go into Deathwing, Dark Angels. He had to go into the inner not Deathwing. He had to go into the Dark Angels with the inner circles and the companions, Deathwing Knights. So great job by Courtney Rhodes for automatically getting a nice, effective win in for that first game. Then we go into his second matchup with the Green Tide, where he went to Black Templar Space Marines. So he had to deal with Chaplain Marvelous, High Marshal Hellbrick, Lieutenant, and then Lieutenant Combi Bolter. He had to deal with 1 big units of Righteous Crusaders. Again, this is a really good target for Mr. Chaplain Grimaldus to be on. He gives them a feel no pain. He gives them the ability to advance and charge. He gives them the ability for +1 armor save. So very problematic sort of unit that he can do it, or he can end up sticking Mr. High Marshal Hellbrick in there for making more killy effectively, but likely he's going to put Hellbrick in the Sword Brother in the squad, right? So he has Assault Intercessor with Jump Pack, 1 Basilisk Dreadnought, 2 Gladiator Lancers, Infiltrator, a Ladrator Redeemer, and then Sword Brother in the squad, followed by a Scout squad. And as for this mission, it was his second mission, which is Purge the Foe. There are a lot of Boyz units here that can end up getting killed. Both of these guys aren't super elite, but as we looked at this list, it does have a little bit more MSU than other Green Tide lists. There are 2 units of Boyz, there's 2 trucks, there's 3 Flashgets, there's a Knob, there Storm Boys, War Bikers. There's a lot of MSU there, and really even the meat and potatoes of this list of the 20-man units of Boyz don't have the durability of the Feel No Pain. So Sword Brethren, blending through them, that big unit of Primaris Crusaders can end up blend through those Boyz. They don't have Flame on Death here. There's no gas to help offset or throttle their killing potential. And then he just has just enough anti-tank that they can all just focus on his battle wagon. And then other than that, he has flamers for Lamb Raider Redeemer. I'm sure this player also played Black Templars correctly. I'm just saying that you can see how he has all the tools to kind of just, if Courtney Rhodes made a mistake, he could just punish him really hard for that. Courtney still scored very well for Purge the Foe, so he was still doing his work, but it's a hard one when the guy could just kill you so effectively, and you have to deal with that. So he did take his loss there, but nice representing win. Then he gets his third mission. It was Taken Hold, Hidden Supply Lines. Orks liked this mission. Orks are fine with his deployment zone as well. Take this Beastmaster off my screen. So for his third game, he went into Space Marine, Blood Angel, Sons of Swingunius. We'll see how their points look, right? We'll see how their points look. 2 captains, Chaplain with Jump Pack, Lamardis, and the Sanguinary Jump Priest, only 1 of them. 2 units of Assault Intercessors on foot, 2 Impulsors, 3 Jump Pack Intercessor squads, a big unit of Death Company with Jump Pack, and then a 5-man unit of Death Company with Jump Pack, 1 3-man unit of Inceptors, an Infiltrator, and 2 2 Scouts, followed by 1 Vanguard Veteran squad with the Sang Priest for his 4-up Feel No Pain. 5 of Feel No Pain and his 4-up Invuln from those Storm Shields. Quite straightforward Sons of Sanguinius list. These guys are super killy and have the potential to kill the Ork units, but luckily our boy does have a lot of screening. our Blood Angels player doesn't have anything to really pop tanks other than running up and charging them. Therefore, you can actually stage in your trucks, you can stage in your wagons. Flash gets feel really good into a lot of these units, putting in 2 damage shots into them and then running in with strength 5 punching. And then re-rolling wounds with the boys means you at least get the volume to really chew through these guys once it's your turn to fight with them. So you do get the initiative on you if you don't screen. You do have the transport, so you can actually hide up on them for a little bit. They have a couple of impulsors, so they can do it as well. Not a straightforward game by any means. And this is the third one. You're just happy that it's taken hold for easy primary scoring on this mission. To keep the game pretty score, but he had a 96-point win there. So Corny was just doing work, to be honest, because this Blood Angel player does have a lot of the tools and to run out there and punch these mobs and even finish them off. It was just really good timing on the wall, I'm going to assume here. So he ended up just soaking in that punch and then clapping back and just responding very well. Or he, went toe-to-toe and then ended up scoring a secret mission with his weird boy somehow, right? Then he goes into his fourth game. The fourth game mission was Burden of Trust and Prepared Positions. Again, we have corners deployments. He went into the World Eaters. So we have Angron, Karn the Betrayer, Lord of Akadas, World Eaters, Master of Executions. We have a Jackal, followed by 1 big unit of Khorne Berserkers. He's the escort Master of Executions. 2 units of 5 Zerkers. Only 1 Rhino. 2 3-man units of 8-bound. These basic 8-bound low-key guys are good for support because they give reroll once to wound. 1 big unit of Exalted 8-bound, followed by 2 2-man units of Chaos Spawn. Not easy list to deal with. If you're not used to like World Eaters, this is one of those things where this matchup for sure you kill everything else and you try to ignore Angron because nothing on your green tide list is effectively killing Angron. Yet you can kill a lot of these Khorne Berserkers. You can kill the Jackals. You can hide within your transports from the 8-bound and disembark and beat them up when it's time to go. You have enough volume to actually punch through the Chaos Spawn. You have all the flash kits to deal with the Chaos Spawn too, thank goodness. You have some scoring units for this too. And like I said, it's Burden of Trust, Prepared Positions. You could take advantage of Prepared Positions actually on non-wall turns if he had shooting, but he doesn't because he's World Eaters. So really important of you as an Ork player to know into this matchup that 1, if you screen correctly, he's not going to just YOLO bound into you. But if he does just YOLO bound into you, try to kill everything else and just let Angron kill, 1 unit, hopefully a turn, right? Try not to give him more units than that, but just have your units spaced out where Angron's about to go and just say, all right, Angron, you can kill this 1 unit of boys. Oh, you can kill this 1 truck. Yeah, Angron. Oh, you can get my battle wagon. Because you just got to make sure you kill everything else here on this because nothing on that green tide list doesn't allow him to win, but he did get a 75-point win there. Nothing on this green tide list didn't kill Angron clean is what I meant to say. And then we have his fifth matchup, which is Scorched Earth. Scorched Earth. Very cagey on the scoring here to play nice and nuanced. So let's see. Ooh, he got 100 points there. My goodness. My boy definitely ran him over. Ended up burning. He ended up burning something, didn't he? And he went into Dark Angels Gladius Task Force. So my boy had to deal with double Dark Angels at this event, like twice in his path to victory. So he had Azrael, Lieutenant with combi weapon, 1 Intercessor Squad, followed by 3 units of Deathwing Knights. Love to see it. 2 Gladiator Lancers, a big unit of Hellblasters. I'm sure they have the Bolter Discipline. Fire Discipline? Yeah, Fire Discipline from the Lieutenant. Nasty. That's nasty firepower from the Hellblaster Squad. An Inceptor Squad, Infiltrators, Scouts, and then a Cladius Assassin. For this list right here too, as we spoke about before, very important that you interact with the majority of the rest of his list and not just try to run into the Deathwing Knights and kill them. You do want to end up on the objectives with them because you can just not OC them, but you don't necessarily want to charge them and then he Armor of Contempt and you do nothing with them, right? You could do them if you have multiples go off, your war boss goes off, maybe he gets lucky and they punch away most of your boys, but your boys survive, and then the war boss chews through some people and they don't pop Armor of Contempt. There are conditions that you can kill them, but you only really want to try to kill 1 of these units because you can't let all 3 of them stand on every objective in the middle of the table, right? But your priority is, once I can kill this one, I'm trying to kill everything else that was around this unit to support him and reclaim the middle, whether it's by just having bodies to go there and keep auto-seeing it, or that's the one unit that I end up having to kill. But just know you're not killing all three of them when you're going into this matchup. You're more or less going for about one of them, because at least your green tide list isn't about just killing, right? This is purge. So you're really about, I blow up one side of the field, get to your home deployment zone, right? Or you weird boy to his home deployment zone while his Deathwing Knights stand in the middle of the table and just stand there because they're just meant to stand in the middle of objectives. So shout out to Courtney Rhodes for actually being able to pull off a green tide 4-1, going through Dark Angels 2 different times and having to deal with Blood Angels. Courtney Rhodes was definitely on his Great WAAAGH path right here, as the only army that, took him down was just one loss that he had to deal with in the second round. And he had very light characters, like I said. He had 3 war bosses, 1 bloodthirsty belligerents, 1 weird boy so you could do secret missions, 2 20-man units of boys, 2 10-man units of boys, 2 trucks, 1 battle wagon, 3 5-man units of flash kits, love flash kits, and then a 5-man units of Noms with power claws for the SWAT teams, 1 simple Gretchen unit, 2 storm boys, and 1 war biker unit. With my boy only dropping 1 game, which was 2 Black Templars, and in reality, I think it was only because it was Purge the Foe. It's hard to say why he lost that, but maybe Purge the Foe saw off a couple point difference there, because Courtney showed that he could actually deal with Space Marines in all these different ways through his other paths to victory. I'm sorry, through his other wins. So close one there, Courtney. Almost went 5-0. I felt like you were right there on the cusp. Really did a great job there with your green tide. I'm sure that someone like you is going to do really, really good when they get a little bit of buffs here and there, which I really like to see. I personally love green tide. That's where I started my 40K experience. So I'm happy to see you're doing great out there and motivating other Ork players that they can still get stuck in with the green tide. So everybody, Orks made their appearance. It was their time to shine, and they ran rampant through the London GT. So shout out to Mr. Brian for actually getting second place there, and shout out to all the different Ork players who did so great over the weekend. Like I said, here are the other Ork players that did good other than the last 3 we covered. So shout out to them and everybody that was doing great. As you can see, Dread Mob, War Horde, and Bully Boys can all be played. And there's always different ways to enjoy your Great WAAAGH. So the reason we cover lists here isn't so that you can go out and start copping them, because that's not really going to help you necessarily, especially with Orks. If it was something like a very limited faction that doesn't have a lot of data sheets and they only have 1 detachment that they're going into, then sure, maybe you copy that and you just say, I'm going to run 30 Plague Marines with, fights first and lethal 5+ and critical 5+. Sure, but we don't run like that. There's not a lot of times where you're just going to run 1 straight up data sheet as Orks and just spam it out and just run someone over. You're going to have to understand the nuances of the list and the paths to victory they even win. Look at us actually having the deployment mission pack makes a big difference here, so we can actually see what's going on. And that's something that you have to consider, whether you're a new player, intermediate player, and why we do these and the amount of context that require to even get the understanding of what the potential of this list is, or what it had to go through, or what it didn't have to go through. Maybe its path to victory didn't have to deal with what you're having an issue with, right? Maybe it doesn't even have the tools for that. So this is all about to just help you grow, but also reinforce that whether you want to play a different detachment from War Horde, or whether you want to optimize your War Horde, you want to optimize playing with killer cans or walkers, there's different people running different stuff all over the world and enjoying the WAAAGH wherever they want to. So definitely WAAAGH your own way, and don't forget about our Great WAAAGH. So please leave us a like and subscribe, because even though the Orks are struggling, we don't want to be also. So give us, little shout out there. Hopefully you can get a subscribe. I don't really like to ask for those, but we're in the time we need. So thank you, everybody that's been around for your join us for our hobby live stream that we're going to do this Friday to show the paint competition winners. We like to do a lot of announcements there and stuff. It's not always just about competitive play. It's about getting stuck in with the community and enjoying the hobby as a great whole. So, of course, be there for that. Of course, if you're a member, check out our post for Mr. Initiative. That way you can leave a question, get stuck in, and actually get involved in that soon to come live stream. So thank you to everybody who's appeared. There's always one thing to remember, though, is don't cross a wall, because we knock your teeth out. Whoa!